Greetings, brothers. Today we're talking Assault Marines. These are something that I've not really talked about period on this channel. Lots of people have picked them up. They obviously take the fast attack slot rather than the elite slot, so it's really interesting to see if these guys are just competitive enough for a Blood Angels army list and certainly for high-level tournament play. So by the end of this video, you'll know just exactly that. And yes, the gloves have returned. It is winter. Winter is coming, folks. Let's go. So thanks so much for being here. I do appreciate you watching my videos. I am John, the Blood Angels Commander, and every week I'm doing various videos on how to get the most out of your Blood Angels army on the tabletop. If that's something you are interested in, then please do consider subscribing. Okay, let's talk about Assault Marines, because they're definitely a hot take right now. We see them in so many lists. And as always, I've got some slides. So, like I said, we're finally covering them. What are you getting for your points with Assault Marines? So for about 108 points, you're going to get that 6-man unit. And we see a lot of people edge towards a 6-man unit because that does give you the guaranteed Retrieve Nephilim action. Sorry, I was going to say like Nakman data. They keep changing this one every couple of months. But it's Nephilim right now. 6-man are going to perform it. They're not going to be able to fail. And at 108 points with a 12-inch move, that's pretty decent, considering they can do death from above, so it's very possible to bring them into one board quadrant, do the action. Potentially this could double up with something like Relentless Assault behind enemy lines, engage in all fronts, all these other things you could score as well. Then you could move 12 inches, do the action again. Assuming that you can deploy them kind of concealed, then it's almost guaranteed points, right? What do you get that's different now? Obviously the Sergeant can take a free pistol or basically a free melee weapon. Now there is some upgrades that you can spend points on, but if we're talking about Blood Angels, then a free pistol could be an Infernal pistol and a Plasma pistol. I definitely prefer Infernal there. And a free weapon could be a Lightning Claw or a Power Sword. You could also go double close combat weapons here if you wanted. You go one Lightning Claw and a Power Sword, or double Lightning Claw I suppose. Definitely a few options there. I think my preferred loadout would be an Infernal pistol and a Power Sword, and it's important to note that Sergeant can also take a combat shield for free. This isn't going to cost you any points. It's going to give him +1 to save, and it's going to give him a 5-up invuln, which basically kind of is slightly better than Armor of Contempt, I would argue, because Armor of Contempt is a 3-up ignore 1 AP, whereas this is just a flat 2-up with a 5-up invuln. So we actually don't see many people take the combat shield. Like when I've been reviewing tournament lists, no one's taking the combat shield. But unless I'm wrong, and I guess if I am wrong, tell me in the comments below. But to me, it seems like you can, and you should probably just take the combat shield for free. Stick it on his backpack. I mean, I guess he's got a jetpack. Okay, stick it on his leg. Just get it on the model somewhere because it's free. Why would you not want a free shield that gives you more survivability? Okay, 2 Marines can replace their bolt pistols with plasma pistols, and this is also free. So on all the other units, like the Primaris units that you have to pay 5 points for your plasma pistols, well here, it's free. So why would you not replace 2 bolt pistols with 2 plasma pistols? I mean, you should do that 100%. And then, 2 guys can replace their bolt pistol and chainsword with a free flamer. Now, this could go either way. On average, a flamer is going to give you like 7 shots per turn. But you're going to give up 2 pistol shots, and then if you're an Assault Doctrine, you're going to give up 4 chainsword attacks. And if you're an Assault Doctrine, your pistols and your chainswords are going to be slightly better. I guess the advantage with the Flamer is auto hits, and you can swing high and you can swing low, and it's a 12-inch, so you don't have to be in melee combat to get the full advantage out of the Flamer. So should you switch 2 guys with bolt pistols and chainswords for flamers? I mean, you can, and for the purpose of deciding how good the squad is, I have done it when we get to the maths later on, but you don't have to. Assault squads with flamers / meltaguns are kind of those like stereotypical, or like the iconic would be a better word for that. They're the iconic units that we used to see. They actually used to have a squad called the Blood Angels Honor Guard, and that used to be like a sergeant with a couple of weapons, a couple of guys with meltas or flamers, then a couple of guys with bolt pistols and chainswords. So this is kind of like building the assault squad of old, and I guess some people might like that just because it's got that sort of like 1990s when you started to play Warhammer vibe, and I think it's cool. If you do want to take the plasmas or the meltas here, they are going to replace those flamers, and they're going to cost 5 points per model. So it makes the squad a little bit more expensive, but obviously puts a couple of meltaguns, 12-inch move, 12-inch meltagun. It's not a bad threat range. If you're bringing them down from deep strike, you'd be able to fire those meltaguns, maybe be able to pop some armor, maybe be able to bring them down close to an enemy character. Only one melta needs to sneak through and you could vaporize like a 6-wound character with a little bit of luck on their damage roll. Now, also, one model can take an Eviscerator, which really is a poor man's Thunderhammer, in that it's +3 strength, so strength 7 it would be. It's -4, which is a good bit better than the Thunderhammer now. If you think the Thunderhammer got reduced to -2, and then it's 2 damage. So obviously it's not 3 damage, but you've got a lot more AP, and you've got 1 less strength, but 1 less strength isn't a huge deal for Blood Angels. So like, if you had 5 points left over at the end of the squad, would I potentially replace a Power Sword with an Eviscerator, in that the Eviscerator is going to be -1 to hit, but it's +2 strength? It's a tough one, I guess, right? Like, it's really up to you. I feel like it's a poor man Thunderhammer. I feel like it's not bad for 5 points, and if you did have just the Sergeant running around at the end of the game, like the Sergeant's on his own, so he's getting 4 attacks on the charge, and he's got an Eviscerator, I mean, that can potentially, you're probably wounding most things on 2s or 3s. It's not bad. I guess it's a way you could throw 5 points at the unit, but I feel like you'd probably be better to throw 5 points at a meltagun for one of those flamers. The one thing to say though is, in my experience, if you are going to run a squad with just like a single Infernal Pistol or a single meltagun, you have to be prepared for it to do no damage, right? You need to run multiple to sort of, especially, a ballistic skill 3 up, you need to run multiple just to make sure you get hit. You're possibly going to need multiple to make sure you just get a wound, and then you obviously have to save as well. So running one Infernal Pistol often feels like very swingy, right? You either does great or it just does nothing. And I think probably it does great 1 game out of 4 or something, in the other 4 games it does nothing. So if you're just going to run one meltagun, just be aware of that. I think if this was me, and I was going to be paying the points for an assault squad, if I wanted to go meltas, I think I would go double melta and I would go an Infernal Pistol. Right, but for this comparison, we're going to go 2 guys with plasmas and chainswords, 2 guys with flamers, and then the Sergeant with the Infernal and the Power Sword. I could have taken a Lightning Claw, but I like the AP on the Power Sword now with the changes of Armor of Contempt. Okay, so like, I'm just going to basically break these things down, and we're going to do Math Hammer, and I'm going to compare them to a 105 point Death Company squad, because we know these Assault Marines are 108 points. I've just separated them like this because obviously the Sergeant has a slightly better save, so I need to factor that in when I'm working out these numbers. Now, what's interesting here is that your 108 point Assault Marine squad, yes, it's 3 points more expensive than the Death Company, but I mean, 3 points is negligible. Usually at the end of a battle, or at the end of a list, when you're making a list, you have a few points left over, right? The survivability is identical, basically. Against bolt rifles, you can see here 60 plus 12 is 72. Again, you can see here 12 plus 2.4 is 14.4. So on and so on and so forth. The only time at the very end against the high AP weaponry, because your Assault Marine Sergeant's going to save a little bit better with that combat shield, the Assault Marines are actually more survivable with the Death Company. So it's even on 4 of the 5 comparisons, and in 1 comparison, the Assault Marines are better. Obviously, Death Company have that inherent survivability against mortal wounds because they have a feel no pain. So I guess there's your trade-off. Assault Marines are ever so slightly more survivable. Death Company are better against mortals. Against massive AP, I guess the ability to potentially take some of those saves on your Assault Marine Sergeant could help. And also, if you were in cover, I guess if you were in cover, this guy would be on a 1-up save. So -1 in cover potentially means that you could get a bunch of guys. You could save on 2s, right? Yeah, so that's kind of where I am in terms of survivability. Both squads are basically dead even. And if you feel like you're getting some value out of today's video, please do leave a like button, and also consider sharing this video with a friend, because I really do appreciate all the support. Now, this surprised me. When I actually break it down and think about it, like a 6+ feel no pain across 10 wounds is very similar to having 1 more model. So it makes total sense, but like on paper, I kept thinking to myself, like, a 105 point Death Company. The Death Company dropped in points. They're really competitive at 105 points. They're really survivable at 105 points, and they're mobile. So the Assault Marines surprised me on the survivability. Let's see how we do on the damage output. And this is another, like, before we get the slide, this was something else I was thinking. The Assault Marines are definitely going to be inferior to the Death Company, like, by quite a bit, because those Death Company in Assault Doctrine are going to get 30 chainsword attacks, and they're going to be -2. So I was thinking, there's no way the Assault Marines with 1 attack per model can keep up with that. So as I said, I've been avoiding these Assault Marines because I didn't think that 1 attack was very good. When I picked my squad, I want all the attacks, and I didn't think that these guys would even be remotely on the same damage scaler as those Death Company with those 30 chainswords. But what we've done here is we've taken the Assault Squad, the 6-man, the Sergeant with Infernal and Power Sword, the 2 Plasmas, the 2 chainswords, the 2 Flamer guys, and then 2 bolt pistols, or 1 bolt pistol and chainsword, sorry. And note, we're always shooting the Plasma on low power because I'm too much of a wimp to shoot them on high power, because I love survivability over damage output. And then I've taken those Death Company. I've worked out all the bolt pistols, the chainswords, and the ranged attacks, and I've assumed everything's in range, and I've assumed we've made all our charges. And then when you actually add up the damage here, and this is all done in the Assault Doctrine, you can see what we're fighting, like in Cultists, toughness 3, 6 up save, Marines and a Marine character. I've thrown Armor of Contempt onto them, and then some buggies, maybe Raiders, maybe like a Demon Prince, and some generic armor. Here's the damage, and the Assault Marines are going to win in 3 of the 7 categories. The categories that the Death Company win on, it's barely like 5 or 10%. Maybe on this one down here it's a little bit over, it's like 20%, but on this one it's like, it's not 10%, it's maybe 5, in this one it's definitely 5%, and this one maybe it's 10%. So, and on the other ones, like Armor of Contempt, I guess the Plasma Pistols really push the Assault Marines up ahead, and maybe the Infernal Pistol and the Power Sword, because these guys, it swings the other way. This is like a 15% increase for the Assault Marines. So the numbers here really surprised me. I guess what it says to me is when new units come out, I need to get on the math much quicker, because I felt like I just focused on the fact that the Assault Marines have 1 attack and went, yeah, that sucks. And, I mean, Death Company, by default, you know, yeah, they have 3 attacks. They get 1 for Black Rage and then the 2 more for charging. The 3 includes their chainsword. But I guess these guys do get chainswords as well. So, like, realistically, most of them are 2. It's just the Flamer guys that have 1. And I can't believe these numbers. I honestly am a bit speechless about how good the Assault Marines' damage output is, considering they're in the fast attack slot. I would have never expected this. I've been thinking for a while, those 5-man Death Company with bolt pistol and chainswords, if you can afford to put them in your list, put them in your list. And when I've seen people with Assault Squads, I've been like, yeah, okay, Assault Squads, they're fine. But when you actually run the numbers, they're just as survivable, and their damage output is just as good, and they cost the same points. So, yeah, right after I made this, I was searching through my cupboard, like, to try and see what Assault Marines I have and what weapon options I can get onto them. Unfortunately, mine are all on low 25mm bases, so I'm going to have to get some base extenders, but that's beside the point. Yeah, Assault Marines, I can see why they're a hot take. They're not a bad choice at all. I personally still don't like going full melee. But, like, if you want to go full melee here and run, like, 3 squads of Sandguard, 3 squads of Death Company, 3 Assault Marines, like, that's a lot of damage. And it's a good amount of survivability. Alright, so key points for each unit. The Death Company can have their survivability boosted, and I guess they can synergize a little bit with the Fury of the Lost. They can't perform actions. They can Furlong Fury. I should have put another bullet point here that says they can't fall back. Okay, the bullet point appeared. But sometimes they can't fall back is actually kind of a negative, because most of our strength comes from making those charges. If we get bogged down in combat, we don't get Red Thirst, we don't get Shock Assault, we don't get Savage Echoes, suddenly our damage output really falls away, right? Alright, what do Assault Marines get? They obviously have the same jump packs. 6-man can perform that action. They can perform any actions, like mission actions, but they can also do Retrieve Nakmandea with no danger of it failing. 1 model could give up their attacks, like I said, the Flamer, for potentially 2d3 mortals, and that would be an average of 4 damage to vehicles, assuming you can make that single hit roll. They don't take up elite slot, which is great. 5 spare points could give your sergeant that eviscerator, or you could take that meltagun. Usually at the end of the list you've got 5 points left over, right? So you could go with what you think is strongest. I mean, I like the fact that the eviscerator is -5. you know, AP isn't, well, I say -5 once we get to Assault Doctrine. AP is important these days into Armor of Contempt units, and even, like, most Armor of Contempt units are still failing at -5 because it becomes -4, so unless they're on a 2-up save, they're getting no save. So I'm okay with the Eviscerator, and it's cool. It's a giant fucking chainsword. I wish more of our models could actually take Eviscerators. And then you could also run these guys in a 5-man squad for 90 points. It's still like, I guess, an 83% chance of passing Nachmund. You can still do mission actions. They can still score. And, again, having the flexibility of having the unit a bit cheaper, like, you can't get the Death Company any cheaper than 105 unless you're going to drop the jump packs, which kind of is counter. Without the jump packs, they're no use, really. So, these guys could still be useful, potentially, for 90 points. So what is there to say in conclusion? Well, for starters, I'm very glad to see some really underutilized, that's a tongue twister, underutilized Firstborn unit of Assault Marines getting some love. Maybe. Fingers crossed. Tactical squads could get something next. Like, we know they do suck, right? Like, they definitely do suck. But yeah, I was totally surprised that Assault Marines are basically equal in survivability to the Death Company. I thought the last points drop to the Death Company made them really competitive. And then I'm surprised again that there's very few high AP shots. But I mean, you run the math, and you know, the math doesn't lie. And then the Power Sword, they really make up for like 10 plus chainsword attacks, which is crazy. I mean, they made a big deal about chainswords being much stronger this edition. You know, they made a big deal about them being 1 AP by default and they were going to be super strong. But I guess all that changed with Armor of Contempt, and all that changed with, I guess, like, other things as well, like orcs all going up to toughness 5 and stuff like that, you know? So, yeah, more fool on me, I guess. The fact that Assault Squads are ahead in a bunch of places, and only minor amounts of damage behind, is just surprising to me. I've recently been loving like a 5-death man company with Infernal Pistols and Power Swords, and I actually did a video a few weeks back focusing on Fury of the Lost. But I for sure have run the 5-man death company with Bolt Pistols and Chainsword combo, and I felt it was decent in value. So yeah, maybe I'll run an Assault Squad in some point soon. But I am 100% committed at the moment to trying building a list with some fire support, and I've actually been playing attack bikes recently. I've been really enjoying playing those attack bikes again. So I won't be running an all melee list, but I think if that's something you want to run, then you could definitely do not bad with assault squads. Maybe the assault squad list for me feels more like typical Blood Angels than the Centurion list. But like obviously some people have been enjoying running those big blocks of Centurions too. I like the list that we looked at last week where it was like, I think he had 20 Assault Marines, and when I saw that list I thought like, 20 Assault Marines, that's fine. But 20 Assault Marines actually, I mean, they're on par with Death Company point for point. Maybe once you start adding in like Power Swords and Infernal Pistols, Death Company become a bit more optimized with points because of the extra attacks they get. But yeah, if you've just got a couple hundred points at the end of the list, couple of squads of Assault Marines is actually not bad at all. I think this does open up some options for Blood Angels players, and it's nice to see some of the Firstborn stuff really getting more competitive, because for me, I'm going to be very upset if Firstborn get phased out, because I still feel 2.5 years now almost into the release of Primaris. Actually, Primaris have maybe been out a bit longer than 2.5 years. Maybe we're talking like 3 or 4 years now. I think it's 2.5 years since 9th, so probably about 4 years for Primaris. I still feel like far too many of the Primaris squads are super limited on their weapon options. An example of that could be like Outriders, and like I just hate Outriders. Like all they can take is chainswords. You can't do any customization with them. You can't do any customization on the size of the unit. You know, like Primaris units are just far too limited still. I really wish we could see more customization on them. The double metal gun assault squad could also be pretty fun, and like I said earlier in the video, a 12-inch move and then a 12-inch melta is actually a decent threat, and if you are arriving from deep strike, a couple of melta gun shots could also be pretty tactical / important. You could definitely make an enemy character the closest to the squad. A couple of melta gun shots, hit with one, wound with one, then you roll the dice on if they can make the save, you know. It could be decent. And Also, Assault Squad with Combat Shield, Infernal Pistol, / Eviscerator, or maybe just the Power Sword. I think the Assault Sergeant's pretty interesting. I think he's a pretty cool model. So let me know what you think of this video. Am I an idiot? Should I have covered Assault Marines earlier? Have you been using them? Do you feel like they do as much damage? Why did no one tell me this? Why did no one tell me my Assault Marines are absolutely rocking damage-wise? Is no one... Some people have definitely been running them. But that's okay. I will... There's a balance data slate coming out this week. I mean, it might have dropped before this video because I'm recording this video on Tuesday night because I'm filming my live battle report on Wednesday and I'm filming my podcast on Thursday. So there's a very good chance the balance data slate will come out and I've got no chance to change this video. But thank you ever so much for watching to the end. Thank you, as always, for the support. This Saturday's live stream was crazy. We got like 20 gifted memberships. It was awesome. If you guys want to come past on some of our live streams and become a member, then there's so many people in our community like gifting out subs now. I really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for the support. I hope you enjoyed this week's live game against Chaos Demons. It's the first time I've played them, and it's good to get practice against demons before I go to my next event. And as always, if you've got any suggestions for future videos, or you'd like your army list reviewed, you can talk to me down in the comments section below, and we'll make that happen. We're live every week looking at people's army lists. And then finally, if you do want to support the channel in any way, shape or form, you can click the big join button under this video. You can click any of the affiliate links to like Amazon, Audible, Element Games in the video description. Make a purchase after using one of those affiliate links. All this goes towards helping me out and I do really appreciate it. I will catch you guys in the next video. By the blood are we made strong, brothers. Peace.